see the Mayor.
I'm Ben Still, Chief Executive of the Combined Authority.
Caroline Norries, Assistant Director, Legal Governance and Compliance.
Susan Hinchcliffe, Leader of Bradford Council.
James Lewis, Leader of Leeds Council.
Martin Love, Balancing Member from Bradford Council, Green Party.
Rebecca Paulson, Leader of the Conservative Group on Bradford Council and alternate member today.
Councillor Barry Anderson from Leeds City Council, but I'm here as the Chair of Scrutiny.
Ben Burton from City York Council, covering for Claire Douglas.
Felix Gumiampo, for Director for Inclusive Economy, Skills and Culture, the Combined Authority.
Angela Taylor, Director of Finance and Commercial Services, the Combined Authority.
Jess McNeil, Head of Home Energy West Yorkshire, the Combined Authority.
Good morning, I'm Dave Haskins, Interim Director, Passenger Experience and Assets at the Combined Authority.
Good morning, I'm Simon Warburton, Executive Director for Transport.
Morning, I'm Alan Rees, Chief Operating Officer at Combined Authority.
I'm Sue Holdsworth, Political Balance Member, Liberal Democrats, Calderdale.
Carol.
Jane Scullion, Leader of Calderdale Council.
Denise Jeffrey, Leader of Wakefield Council.
Miles Larrington, Committee Services Officer.
Thank you, super. So welcome Martin, welcome Ben. And just to remind everybody that in order for it to be recorded on the tape, we can hear you. Please use the intercom, the com there. Thank you. Okie doke, Miles, any apologies?
Apologies for absence, Chair, have been received from Councillor Claire Douglas, Councillor Alan Lamb and Mandy Ridyard.
Thank you so much. And do any members have interest they wish to declare on any item on the agenda? No, thank you so much. Item 4, minutes of the 25th of July 2024. Any comments or questions on the minutes from the previous meeting? Are we happy to confirm that these are an accurate record? We are. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on to item 5, Mayor's update. You may have seen today that it was announced that Hull and East Riding and Lincolnshire have agreed their devolution deal. So that will be the whole of Yorkshire will have mayors by next year. So it's a good day for devolution. I just thought I would alert you to that breaking news. So 2024 saw the 10th anniversary of the first ever meeting of the Combined Authority. It took place on the 1st of April 2014, back in the mists of time. The anniversary was overlooked, as you know, because of that small matter of mayoral elections. But given the items on today's agenda, the progress we're making to agree further devolved powers with this government, I just wanted to make sure that we marked it, that sometimes people feel that because I've been the mayor for 3 years, that we are a new mayoral combined authority, and it is 10 years since we became a combined authority, and something to celebrate. And that partnership has remained extremely strong. We've delivered on projects across the region that truly matter to the public, investing in and improving our transport network with new railway stations, Low Moor in Bradford, Kirkstall Forge in Leeds, as well as improvements to others, including Castleford. We've made it easier for buses to get around the region, dozens of bus priority schemes, park and rides, invested to protect the region from flooding with incredible new schemes protecting homes and businesses, such as Mythenroyd and across the Calder Valley, supported tens of thousands of businesses to grow and expand, and attracted countless others to invest in new operations, including, of course, Channel 4 just round the corner. We've invested heavily to improve skills and employment opportunities for people across West Yorkshire. And since the devolution deal was secured, we've been able to go even further, delivering new homes using our Brownfield Housing Fund to unlock sites that wouldn't otherwise have been built, taking buses back into public control while investing in new routes and keeping those fares low, making significant progress on the delivery of mass transit, with the initial route option consultation still live for another week or so, creating jobs, making greater investments in skills, and honestly, I could go on, but our partnership is only as strong today as it was 10 years ago because of our constant willingness to renew it and to evolve. as we look towards new powers from the English Devolution Bill and securing that all-important single settlement with government, we do need to evolve again while maintaining that strength of partnership. And that's what several items on the agenda today are about, not least our local growth plan that Felix will talk us through, and new ways of managing our portfolio, showing how we're ensuring that we are fit and ready for the future, continuing the direction I have given to this organisation to deliver, deliver, deliver. And as I say, the faces around this table aren't the same faces that were around the table 10 years ago. I think Tom Reardon might have been the last chief executive standing from those early days of the partnership. And it would be remiss of us not to, for the record, acknowledge his contribution to the region here as he moves into his new role at the Department of Health. And I think I'm probably safe in saying that not all the faces around the table today will be the same faces around the table in 10 years' time. But we have a duty to ensure that the partnership is fit and strong for those that follow us, and that West Yorkshire has the right powers, responsibilities and freedoms befitting our status as the 4th largest urban area in the country. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to reflect on that 10-year anniversary and the depth and width of our partnership and how we, by working together, can deliver so much more for our region. So moving on to item 6, appointments to combined authority and committees. This paper notes the changes, as I mentioned, to the CA membership. Can I ask Caroline Norris to run through the changes that are in the paper, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this report is to formally note some of the changes in the membership of the Combined Authority, with Councillor Pattison being the Constituent Council appointed member, with Councillor Crook as a substitute. And as a consequence of that, we have a new political balance member, which is Councillor Love, and with Councillor Andrew Cooper as his substitute. So those are for noting and for the minutes. We also seek here an approval for the appointment of Councillor Pattison to the Finance, Resources and Corporate Committee, which is a matter for the Combined Authority to do. And then finally, the report, para 3.12, notes some of the changes to our committee membership that have been made in between the cycle of meetings for noting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Are members happy to agree the recommendations in the report? We are? Good. Thank you so much. Moving on to item 7, Bradford Interchange update. Look, I know that the closure of the bus station has caused real hardship for the people of Bradford and West Yorkshire, and again, put on record my thanks to the public for their patience in what has been a really difficult few months. As the report confirms, the right decision was made earlier this year to close the interchange due to very real safety concerns. However, I am encouraged by the survey findings summarised in the paper in front of us. Now, I know we're all relieved that it can be reopened once mitigations have been implemented, and although we will need to confirm the decision at our next meeting, I'm looking forward to the interchange being safely welcoming passengers again sometime in the new year. The surveys also highlight that the interchange is coming to the end of its design life. As the report says, we're now working in partnership with the council to look at a longer term plan for an alternative bus station facility in the city centre, one that will provide the best integration with the new rail station and, of course, our exciting plans for mass transit. Can I ask Councillor Susan Hinchcliffe, as Chair of the Transport Committee, to speak to the report, and then I'll come to Dave Haskins, our Director of Passenger Experience and Assets, to take us through the recommendations and then open it up for questions. Thank you. Susan.
Thank you, Mayor. It has been obviously hugely frustrating for the people of Bradford District and indeed West Yorkshire who use Bradford Interchange on a regular basis whilst the interchange has been closed. So when the news came out, was it last week, there was a collective sigh of relief, I think, from Bradford District. I think that actually the end was in sight and it is actually going to be reopened. Obviously the key thing now is when and how quickly can it be reopened. And obviously the October meeting will give us more detail on that, and there will be a further report coming to Transport Committee as well. I think also in the paper it just outlines the future at all as well, of course, talking about
a new interchange in the sort of medium to long term, really, to connect with mass transit. So you'll have bus interchanging with tram, which is great to see, and it'd be lovely to see that investment in Bradford ready for that mass transit operation, which will transform the fortunes of West Yorkshire. But in the short, medium term, obviously, just relieved to have this news, and it will alleviate a lot of the issues that residents and businesses alike have been experiencing. So I'll just move on to Simon then to go through the detail of the paper. Thank you.
Or is it Dave? Yeah. Oh, thank you, Simon. If you do the introduction and then I'll come to you, Dave.
I'll bring Dave in. I just wanted to stress, first of all, at an organisation level that both myself and the leadership team as a whole continue to see this as our single most important customer issue for the organisation, as both you and Councillor Hinchcliffe have touched on. We've introduced a situation which has been disruptive for customers. That is not something that we want to be able to oversee again as an organisation, and so as Councillor Hinchcliffe has pointed out, in the report we set out how the new transport leadership arrangements which you agreed at the last meeting of the Combined Authority are built around learning lessons from this particular experience. We have already appointed and onboarded a new head of assets into the function, who is now working to establish a contemporary asset management process inside the organisation to ensure that we can mitigate against such an experience again. And there is a significant recovery programme that we've continued to run through the year, and that will now clearly move on the back of the issue set out in the report today. And my colleague Dave Haskins, with some really close and great support from colleagues in the council, has overseen this programme. So I'll pass across to Dave so that he can explain where we move from here.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay, I'll try not to repeat too much of what was in the opening remarks, which are particularly useful. And as I said, the interchange is at the end of its design life, so with input, it can have an extended operational life, and that's where we're at the moment. There's this balance to be struck between what more we need to do to understand what investment is required in the short and medium term to maintain a safe operation environment against where we go in the long term for the facility. As you've said already, the surveys, we have some initial findings from the surveys. The surveys are still ongoing. We do have a draft report received, which we're working through, which, as we've said, points towards a pathway for a staged reopening, which is good news for customers going forward. This is subject to implementing some mitigations that we are working through, satisfying due diligence and obviously health and safety considerations and requirements, and ensuring that a clear monitoring regime can be put in place over time. And to this end, we've appointed experts, a global law firm, Kennedy's, with expertise in insurance and liabilities to support us in that, who are currently undertaking an independent review of the Jacobs report, getting advice around particular safety requirements that we need to do in terms of mitigation and minimising risks going forward. Alongside that, we've got a comprehensive work plan underway to make sure we have the quickest possible state of readiness, subject to the above, and subject to getting to that point at the end of October where we can make, hopefully, a positive decision about reopening. Just to flag, really, reopening a bus station is not just a straightforward process. It's reactivating a building that's been closed for nearly a year. There may be some potential rectification works required, series of lots of checks to undertake as well, and monitoring plans to develop and implement. Plus, of course, managing revised bus operations in the city centre and making sure they can work effectively and efficiently, and we have the right level of passenger information to sit alongside that. And we're also dealing with tenant-related issues, people who have leases within the building. So we've got a real focus on how we can do this over the coming period, doing as much as we can to minimise impacts on passengers, as we've already said. A report will be brought forward to the October meeting, and ahead of this we'll be looking to bring a report to the Transport Committee in mid-October for wider discussion. But leading into all of this and making a decision, we'll be setting up some sequencing of briefings, including how we can ensure that combined authority members and others, as required, are familiar with the building in relation to what is described in the report. It is a very complex building, and I understand that just reading a report does not bring it to life and help you understand the complexities of what we're dealing with here. So I just want to give that reassurance that we want to help members walk through that going forward in the next stage of the process. Thank you.
Thank you, David. For new members, just to add to the complexity of the building itself, it is a concrete slab over a void, and the buses are on top of the slab. So we had to make absolutely certain that we had all the information about health and safety whilst we were making these decisions. But can we open this up for a wider conversation? Councillor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the update report. There is so much we can say about the interchange, and we've had it raised at our full council, and we have pretty much cross-party consensus that this hasn't been handled very well. And the passengers and the bus users of Bradford are really, really suffering. It isn't helped with the Transforming Cities work that's going on as well, trying to navigate, anybody trying to navigate their way to the right bus stop in Bradford. It is very, very difficult, and people have been in tears, people have been lost. Please tell me how I get a bus to wherever. So I'm glad we've got an update report finally. I mean, a couple of things I'll just focus on, because I'm sure others have got questions on this as well, is the decision-making process in October. It's very woolly in the report. Who is making the decision? Is it the board members here? Is it officers? Is it the mayor? Is it a combination? So what is that decision-making process and the responsibility for that? Because I've been asking, and I'm glad Dave's mentioned about walking members through the building. It is a complex building if you've never actually used it before. I've been asking that we need a site visit for members here, and I'm sure some of the Transport Committee would appreciate that, because we need to know if it's going to be partially opened initially, how that experience will be for bus users and for the operators as well, how the safety will be looked at, what mitigation is being put in. And reading it in a report isn't good enough. We need to actually see how that will all fit together. It has to open safely. That is the number one requirement. And it has to provide the service that the people of Bradford deserve going forward. They've suffered so much, and we're going obviously into winter now. It's not going to be a great few months in Bradford for them. So really I want clarity over the decision-making process and how that will work going forward. And if we are making the decision here, we need all the information. I've asked for a copy of the Jacobs report. It's not been forthcoming yet because apparently it's interim at the moment. But we need that information if we are making that decision. And also, as a Bradford councillor, the communication has been shocking, I'm afraid. My group got 2 hours notice of a briefing about this week. It's just not good enough. We should now have briefings booked in. We know when the October CA meeting is. It should be all booked in. And I know Leeds councillors want briefing as well, and they've still not had their briefing. So please, can we have clarity over decision making, and can we have proper communication over what is a key decision and really impacts the people of Bradford? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paulson. Any comments? Councillor Love.
Thank you. I fully support what Rebecca's just been saying, but I'd also ask you to look at the interim measures that have been put in place over the past few months, and ask how these are actually being monitored, because as Rebecca has said, that there is a lot of confusion amongst the bus users in Bradford. Another point I'd like to raise is the situation regarding the retailers who actually have had to shut down, the retailers in the interchange itself who've actually had to shut down, and I wonder if compensation for them is being considered, and if not, why not? I would hope that in the October meeting report we will get a bit more detail about the cost of all this. I know we've got a monthly cost in this report, and a promise that there will be more financial information in the next one. But I'd hope that we could get a bit more detail in that. I'd like to reiterate what Rebecca has been saying. Communication with Bradford elected members has been sporadic at best, and at times we've had months of silence. and we've had to go fishing for any information that we can possibly get. And finally, I'd like to ask, is the decision that will be made on October the 1st, will that be the final decision, or will we be pushing things further back to the December meeting? Thank you.
Thank you. And just regarding the silence, this is not out of any desire to keep people out of the process. Things had to be done properly, and these surveys do take time. So there's no point just saying, well, that we're still waiting. So just to reassure you that it's no disrespect to you as councillors, that we were also as frustrated as you, that we wanted to make sure we can make these decisions as swiftly as possible. But to underscore what Rebecca has said, that the safety of the public has got to be certainly our, as combined authority, number one focus, hasn't it? Because to Councillor Hinchcliffe's point, this isn't just a Bradford issue. This is for all of the people of West Yorkshire. So many actually use the interchange that don't live in Bradford but work there. So really important, and particularly the on-street support has been something that you weren't here, but we have been raising this as something that we could do better for the on-street, and I feel that we've put more bodies on the ground, and all credit to those members of staff in the absolute siling torrential rain, almost 10 hours of rain, have been stood there helping the public. So it is a team effort to try and get this resolved. It's not ideal. I would definitely not have wanted this to happen. And we are learning from the experience that we've gone through, and certainly having an asset manager now, I think is going to give us a lessons learned point of view, where we can say we're not going to have this again, and we're going to make sure that all the assets that we do have, whether they're affected by climate change or age or whatever, that we have that consolidated view across the whole of our estate, because absolutely nobody wants this, particularly, as Rebecca said, with Transforming Cities work going on in the centre of Bradford as well, just compounded the misery for the travelling public. So I do see your frustration, but it is in no way manufactured. It is that we were genuinely waiting for details. But I'll come to Simon, and then I'll come to Ben about the phasing of decision making, because we are the CA making the decision, but I'll let Ben talk us through that. So Simon.
Thank you. So to pick up on a couple of points, and then I'll let Ben pick up the issue of taking the decision. We, in terms of the management and oversight of all arrangements, both the interim arrangements, the survey work, and forward thinking in terms of recovery plans, we've established and maintained right through the system both gold and silver command arrangements. I have chaired the gold command, Dave has chaired a silver command. We've had interaction from a number of leading members of the council who've given us a huge amount of their time to walk around the streets with us. It's taken a number of issues. We spent quite a significant amount of time as well bringing in local access groups so as to address specific issues in that regard, as well as bringing together on a weekly basis our colleagues from the bus operators as well, so as to get feedback from the front line. That is not to suggest that everything out there has been perfect, but what I can assure members is that we have not sat back and assumed that we put the best arrangements in place from the outset. We have sought to address them throughout, and I'm very happy to talk to any members afterwards around specific views on member interaction and how we might continue to improve on that going forwards. There is an ongoing communication and engagement with all tenants in the facility. I don't think it's appropriate for me in a public meeting to go into what that will mean in terms of their commercial arrangements with us going forwards, but I can assure members that all tenants are in very regular dialogue with us, and that clearly we will be exploring with them a clear account of the impact on their business and how that is addressed in an appropriate manner.
Thank you. I wonder, Simon, if you could address the point regarding money.
Yes.
Because that was raised as a question.
Yeah. So there are clearly arrangements within the contractual agreements that we have with all of their tenants. Clearly, if members seek, then I can make sure that suitably in private for the next meeting, recognising the commercial considerations, that we can bring advice and assurance to members on that particular point.
Thank you so much. And Ben, regarding the decision-making process.
Thank you, Chair. Just to add my voice to the frustration and the disruption this has caused passengers across West Yorkshire, because as the Mayor says, it's not just the Bradford issue. It's a West Yorkshire strategic facility, and we are doing our level best to bring before members the decisions around whether to reopen or not. I should stress that the decision to reopen will come to the combined authorities. I think, and Caroline can correct me if you think I get any of this wrong, but the decision around should we reopen the interchange is a combined authority decision. As you know, our intention is to bring that to the next combined authority in October. It's helpful that you've agreed to hold combined authority meetings more frequently, because that does allow us to move with more speed. The decision that and the issues that the surveys have been addressing is a different one. That's much more around health and safety and the can it be reopened, and that's the question that we've been looking at in terms of the safety of the users of the facility, be they members of the public, bus operators, our own staff. So once we are satisfied as officers that it can be reopened, then we bring to the combined authority the decision of should it be reopened. And as Simon has said, we will bring all the information that you need to make that decision. Some of it will, by its very nature, be confidential, and we'll have to accept that as part of the pack that will come your way. And as Simon and Dave have said, there will be a lead into that process that will allow you to visit the site if that's necessary and look at all the relevant documents. But that's our plan. I would draw attention also to the points that Dave has made around the complex series of activities that have to happen to bring it safely back into operation if a decision is taken at the end of October to reopen it, and we'll map that out in the paper as well. That sets alongside, as Dave has said, the inspection monitoring regime that will also need to be put in place.
Thank you so much. Hopefully that will have answered some of the questions raised. And I think the future for Bradford is so bright. This has been a really difficult issue for us all as a combined authority, because we're getting on with mass transit, bringing buses back into public control. This has been very intense and resource heavy, and I am looking forward to being able to make that decision about ensuring that the travelling public in Bradford can get about, because of course the clock is also ticking on Bradford City of Culture, which some of you may have been at the launch a week or so ago, which was phenomenal. We want to celebrate all the brilliant things that are happening in Bradford, and hopefully as a CA can get to a resolution on this. Bearing in mind health and safety is our number one issue for the travelling public. And again, apologies to the people who use the interchange for all of the disruption, and thank them for their patience. Okie doke. So are we happy to have the conclusions so far, to endorse those conclusions, and that to understand that a further report will be presented to the CA in October, updating members on the intervening activity, including the outcome of further expert advice? Yes, thank you so much. Okie doke, moving on to the local growth plan. Next up is our update on the progress we're making to develop the West Yorkshire Plan. The growth plan, as you know, it was a manifesto commitment of mine that in the first 6 months of my tenure we would deliver a growth plan, and we are continuing to engage with government on both a political and official level, sharing our priorities and ambitions for our economy. And the work we're doing will feed into the development of the National Industrial Strategy, which will provide a framework for how the government will drive growth across the country. So the report outlines the work we've done to develop our key priorities, also highlights the collaborative efforts that are driving long-term growth in our region. If I may, I'd like to come to Councillor James Lewis as Chair of the Business, Economy and Innovation Committee to introduce the report, and then over to Felix Kumian-Pofo, our Director of Inclusive Economy, Skills and Culture, to talk us through. And I think, Felix, you have a few slides that you could talk to. So, James.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll say a few words before Felix comes in. I think this is clearly a really important piece of work in terms of setting our direction and also working with the government on how we can unlock the resources and powers we need to continue delivering. It's still very much a work in progress and moving very quickly, and I think it's a really great opportunity for the authority to have some input now, as we'll be moving really quickly to getting the final version together. So I suggest we move on to Felix's presentation, please.
Thank you so much. Felix.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I'll run through a few slides just to give members a sense of where we are in the work we're doing. But I suppose right at the top of it is worth reiterating the point you made about the work currently underway. We're working very closely with our partners in central government to make sure we put in a submission that will feed into the National Industrial Strategy, but also form a key part of the single settlement conversations that we've been having. And a part of that work is refining and narrowing and honing down our priorities in line with government expectations and giving a clear sense of how we will unlock the current barriers that we feel we have as per the evidence to ensure we can deliver growth. This submission to government is due at some point in October. We're not quite sure yet what the date will be. And we continue to engage with you, with officers across our local authority partners and with other employers and partners to make sure we put our best foot forward here. And wrapped around that is the commitment the Mayor made during her campaign to publish a local growth plan within 6 months of her re-election. So as part of the work we're doing, we will publish a fuller, wider-based document which will pick up all our growth aspirations and our priorities to make sure we have a touchstone document to refer to and to follow as we deliver the West Yorkshire Plan. So to come to the slide deck then, the first point to make, and it's really not for me, a Ghanaian-born adopted Yorkshireman to tell you what West Yorkshire's story is about. But the evidence and all the conversations we've had lead to a place that can be described as historically and now as a key meeting place of people, of ideas, our topography, our landscape. The rivers that flow through West Yorkshire gave rise to certain types of industry because it made sense for them to be here. And where services grew, especially in Leeds, was not by accident. It's because those industries needed somewhere to be to trade, and financial services and business services grew around that. And that landscape, that topography, that economic history has dictated where people live, where people work, where they travel to and from, and so where our transport infrastructure has grown. And it's important to hold that in our minds as we go through this, because West Yorkshire, as we currently have it, has a fantastic economy. It's worth over 60 billion pounds, 66 billion pounds at last count. And we've got renowned strength, historic and current, in many different sectors. In financial and professional services, we are the biggest financial centre outside London in all of England, employing 27,000 businesses, employing almost 300,000 people. The Bank of England has recently announced it's growing its headcount here over the next few years to 500. The Financial Conduct Authority is here, the Infrastructure Bank is here. We've got key infrastructure bodies in that finance space based here and it's not by accident. And it's a similar story in health, where the NHS is based here and all the nation's apparatus policy making when it comes to health is based here in our region. And born out of that is then our growing strengths using large data in health tech, in med tech, when it comes to diagnostics, when it comes to devices, when it comes to using data to answer big questions. We've always had key strengths in manufacturing. We've got fantastic companies here with really deep specialisms in textiles, in glass making in Wakefield, in wood and furniture products, in automotive products that supply, feed the supply chain for our automotive industry around the country, green industries, wind turbines, aeronautics. West Yorkshire is playing a key role across all these sectors, and the specialisms within that are continuing to grow. Final point I'll make around training and education with our 7 universities, 7 FE colleges, several independent training providers. We have the nation's only specialist building college here. We've got key strengths here that we should rightly be proud of. However, we also have challenges. We also have barriers to our growth. Our economy is smaller than it needs to be, than it should be, given the size of our population and the nature of industry that we have. Our productivity has for too long been too low, which meant we've not generated as much prosperity for the people who live here as we could. Too many people in West Yorkshire do not have the skills that they need to be able to progress or to even have a career, start a career, and to progress in those careers. Even though we have 100,000 businesses, that is still almost 20,000 fewer than it needs to be. Yes, we have 1.2 million people in our labor market, but we have 40,000 fewer jobs than we should have. So we do have challenges, and a key challenge underpinning all of that is the lack of transport connectivity. So in developing this local growth plan, we have understood through the evidence what our key strengths are. We've, through that, worked through what are underlying barriers to growth and where the key opportunities could be. And as I said just now, transport and connectivity is a key barrier. No part of the world has grown their economy, improved productivity without improved or transformed connectivity, and particularly between Leeds and Bradford. That conurbation is home to 1.3 million people. When we say we are a polycentric region, most of the city regions and combined authority areas around the country will have one big city. We've got 2, and other supporting cities and towns. But the connectivity between those places is not up to scratch, and it's a key barrier to growth. I've mentioned skills. Another point to make is around investment, especially over the last 10, 15 years, but really longer than that. There's been chronic underinvestment in our businesses and in our public infrastructure. This holds back growth. It's not just to do with transport, it's to do with unlocking key sites, it's to do with housing in the right places, and digital connectivity and other bits of infrastructure needed to unlock growth in our places. In response to this, and you see in the diagram with the 5 greenish boxes there, we've set out 5 broad priority areas that we're looking to focus on in developing this piece of work. So I will not I'm not going into too much detail, but I'll just take them very quickly in turn. So to unlock growth in our targeted in our key sectors, to deepen the complexity in our economy, it's important that we work really closely with our businesses. We attract more businesses to come here. And there are a number of areas that we are considering. There's work underway far advanced to transform how we engage with businesses, to make sure we are using the ecosystem as well as we could, so that we are adding value when we act and we are not duplicating what's in the system. It's important that we turn our West Yorkshire Innovation Network into a true triple helix organization that will host or house a Centre of Excellence for Innovation, which will focus on rapid development and commercialization of ideas. We're not short of good ideas here, but too many times they wither on the vine because it takes too long, or we don't have the infrastructure to back it to make sure it can be commercialized quickly enough. It's important that we look at not just the sectors we are good at right now, but where the opportunities are going forward and how we can then focus on those opportunities across West Yorkshire to bring growth to our places. It's important that we have soft landing programs for businesses coming in to be able to land here, feel comfortable here, to grow here, to expand and to recruit and be prosperous here. It's important that we tap the talents of all the people who live here, which is why we're already working very closely with our BAME residents here, innovators, entrepreneurs, to make sure they are plugged into the system and they do not feel like they are not part of what's going on here, and we support them to be successful. In skills, we are working on the West Yorkshire Promise, which was a key commitment that the Mayor made, that focuses on making sure that young people and job seekers have the soft skills that they need, have opportunities to be able to get into placements and internships and apprenticeships and other opportunities, but to do that with the soft skills that employers say they need them to have. And we're setting ourselves up to be able to support them. We're looking at technical pathways and making sure they are clear and simple for people to navigate. When somebody is going through the traditional routes, doing GCSE, A-level, going to university, most of the time they don't need anyone explaining it to them. But if you go through a technical route, for whatever reason, it tends to be quite complex and difficult. And it's important, it's on us to make sure this is clarified for parents, for learners, and for employers so people can navigate. The conversation we'll be having about transport and plans that we've got for bus franchising, for mass transit and others will not be deliverable if we don't have skilled people to take the employment opportunities, to have careers and occupations there. We will not be maximizing the opportunities if the supply chain is not set up. So it's important, again, FE colleges especially are telling us that they can't rise to the challenge because they've got huge tutor shortages in the key occupations. It's important that we work with them to address these challenges so that our people can get the opportunities they need and the supply chain can rise up to it. And finally, in Wakefield, for example, higher education attainment is about almost 20 percentage points below where the national average. That cannot continue. Too much talent being wasted. And it's important that we look at that. When we talk about supporting our places to thrive, we've already launched Home Energy West Yorkshire, and that's beginning to take roots, and we'll have a paper on that shortly. It's also important that we invest to unlock our key employment sites, to unlock housing in our key sites. We're working on our nature recovery to make sure we are respecting our environment and we are regenerating our environment and not degrading it. And then I've spoken about transport already, around mass transit, around franchising. These are key things. This is how we are characterizing the key priorities across West Yorkshire. The final slide I'll share is just to draw attention to how we're beginning to think through the corridors of opportunity in West Yorkshire. So if you can excuse my very terrible PowerPoint art there, the arrows there are supposed to show, I mentioned Leeds, Bradford, and then on to Halifax and on towards Greater Manchester, a key corridor where about 1.3 million people live in that Leeds, Bradford space alone. It's important that we address the barriers that I've referred to, the priorities that I've talked to, and focus on that key corridor between Leeds, Bradford, and on to Halifax, where the Transpennine route upgrade is underway, towards Huddersfield, linking into Manchester. This releases connectivity and releases productivity. It allows us to justify investment in the key employment sites, in the housing sites. Likewise, that central line between Leeds, sweeping through Dewsbury towards Huddersfield, and then further on towards either South Yorkshire or Greater Manchester. it's really important that, again, we unlock opportunities in that corridor to make sure people that live there can access the opportunities, to make sure land values rise to the level where investors are then encouraged to invest in our key places. And finally, between Leeds and Wakefield. So in conclusion, the evidence is quite clear. As I said, we have great strengths, emerging growth opportunities that we need to capitalize on. The consensus, however, around our key barriers, crystallizing around those three places, three areas that I talked about: skills, underinvestment, and transport connectivity. And so the headline priorities I've picked the 5 headline priorities that we are focusing on and how we're shaping that in our work with government. This local growth plan will drive how we prioritize, what we invest in the period ahead when it comes to regeneration, skills, transport, and the wider economy. So I hope this gives you a good idea of where we are, what we've been doing up till now, and what you can expect in the weeks ahead.
Thank you so much, Felix. And how you've distilled the amount of work that's gone on into a few slides, I don't know. But as everybody will understand, there is a massive amount of work underneath those slides. But it is not done in isolation either. The West Yorkshire Plan 2040 also informs the growth plan and will help us really have that growth lens as we look to the next 4 years at least, and if not further. So let's start with some a conversation. So Susan.
Yeah, just really wanted to welcome this plan. I mean, obviously the new government have got a real drive for growth. That's the way we're going to fund public services in the future, and we in West Yorkshire want to be very much part of that national plan. So this is really timely to make sure we've got a good pitch to government. And we can all see ourselves reflected in this plan. Thank you, Felix. I know a lot of work has gone on this in terms of consultation with direct authorities as well, and it's coming together really well. From a Bradford point of view, obviously there's a £11 billion productivity gap across West Yorkshire, and Bradford's 6 billion of that. And therefore it is really important that transport connectivity that Felix referred to there, which is the real driver for economic growth, is improved in Bradford, and I know we've made tremendous progress about convincing government that we need this station, and that's been connected on the mainline train line for the first time in our history is going to really transform our economy, and it's great to have that certainty going forward. We have underemployment in Bradford as well, actually, of course. We have people who have great skills, have degrees, but aren't accessing the jobs commensurate with their degree training. So that's obviously making sure that more businesses come who can employ those qualified people. And the mass transit is so important as well. We talked about connecting West Yorkshire via mass transit. So along with the train line, along with mass transit, along with buses back in public control, you can really see it all coming together now, really driving economic growth. And I say that corridors map that you put up there as well also just demonstrates that all those arrows go to Leeds, and Leeds station needs extra capacity. So I think if government ever need convincing about that, there is obviously all those arrows point to Leeds station, and for it all to work out, we do need to get that resolved as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Transport is so key to our growth strategy, and certainly, as you say, Susan, that those graduates who struggle to get well-paid jobs locally might want to have access to jobs in Leeds, but also, more importantly, people who live in Leeds might also want to access great jobs from PwC, for example, in Bradford. So we have got to get that transport piece right, and that connectivity between Leeds and Bradford, that agglomeration, is just is an opportunity that we cannot ignore, and I think that's going to be key to our growth. Any further comments? Yes, Rebecca, and then Susan.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo thank you to Felix and the team. Incredible amount of work's gone onto this, and a really useful presentation, so thank you for that. Just obviously you're saying this needs to go in at some time in October, to be determined, yeah? Sort of what are the next steps from that submission? Has there been like national, requirements or something for the growth plans to feed in, obviously, to a national plan, or will it need to come sort of back and have work done to put in any requirements that may come out of government later?
Thank you. I'll take Sue's question and then come back to you, Felix.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a question that's slightly rhetorical. In your report, Felix, you noted that investment, public and private, in West Yorkshire diverged from the national average following the financial crash of 2008, and particularly in the last decade. I wondered what you thought the reason for that was. Why are we now at a point where, in a way, we need to play catch-up? Because I remember when we were the motorway city of the 70s and Leeds was a boom town. What changed to make us depart from the norm in terms of attracting investment to the city? And the second question is, to what extent do you think the withdrawal of funding for HS2 from the north of England, and of course Leeds in particular, has caused it to be a less attractive regional area for people to invest in? So, thank you.
Thank you, Felix. I would say Leeds is a boom town, but and certainly if you saw the 13,000 people for UK Reef, they were also very excited about the opportunities in Leeds. But it's a thoughtful point. So, Felix.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll take them in turn. In terms of next steps, as I said, we don't have an exact date yet for submission to government. We just know it'll be at some point in October. There will then be a process, as central government, I'm sure with input from us, to develop the National Industrial Strategy, which we expect to be launched in the first half of next year. But again, I don't have any specific details there. We will come back to the October meeting here. If at that point, I think it's 31st October, so in all likelihood, we would have put in a submission to government, which will follow the story that I've just told today. But we'll come back with that report and with what that wider local growth plan for West Yorkshire looks like. And you would have had opportunity to go through that before we come through. We don't have a date yet for launching that report yet, but we expect it to be this side of Christmas. And what we expect is that the submission to government will be one of our primary tools in our conversation to establish what a single settlement will look like, which we expect to be announced in the March budget at this point. But I'm looking at people who know a lot more about this than I do, and maybe there might be some correction around some of the dates. But broadly, that is the journey that we are on. In terms of underinvestment, I'll hazard a couple of guesses. I suppose the first point to make is we are not necessarily unique across the north. So we did diverge, and we have diverged from the national average. That national average is driven primarily by investment in the south, which sort of exacerbates that split. And so West Yorkshire's gross fixed capital formation, which is our technical speak for how much investment is going into our economy, West Yorkshire's curve will not be different to the northeast, the northwest, parts of the Midlands. One of the key things we observed coming out of the 2008 crash was that companies tended to invest more in people, in hiring people, than investing in capital, because it's easier to reverse that investment than if you've bought a great big piece of kit. However, to grow productivity, you do need to invest in capital. So the UK's productivity curve diverged from the rest of the developed world post the crash, partly because of a lack of investment in capital in the UK. And given the north-south divide, and difference in investment in the north compared to the south, we just bore the bigger brunt of that. But that needs to be reversed. What we are doing, though, is to make sure that to back this local growth plan and to make sure we can deliver it, we cannot and should not rely solely or so heavily on public sector investment, important as that is. It's important that we crowd in and we leverage private investment into our places, because there's a lot more money there, and they can, the private sector will invest in a wide range of areas once we can give them the confidence that our economy, investing in our economy, will lead to returns for them. So crowding in private investment is an important trick that we have to pull off to be able to deliver the growth plan.
Thank you so much for that
Thank you
detail. Really helpful. Thank you, Felix. And one of the ways we can do it in the focus on, for example, female-led businesses who, unfortunately, the numbers are going in the wrong direction, that it was 2p in every pound for a female-led business from venture capital, and now it's 1.8p. So it's going in absolutely the wrong direction. So if we can intervene in these spaces, we can get growth. But also to the wider point about the North, that's why we're getting mayors. Mayors are going to be the absolute agents of change, growing the economy more regionally to offset that inequity between the North and the South. So this is what it says in the tin. Mayors are going to grow regional economies. With people like Felix and all the clever people in our organisation, we're hopefully going to do that. So thank you. So are we happy to note this government engagement and endorse the local growth plan development so far? We are? Thank you so much. Perfect. Moving on to item 9, and I'm very aware that I would like us to finish at 1 because I know colleagues around the table have plans. So item 9, as I mentioned earlier, this is about ensuring our partnership and processes are fit for the future. And this asks for the CA's support to take forward new ways of working, to manage our capital and revenue projects and programmes. And it builds on the paper that we saw in July about us making sure our focus is on delivery of the projects that we need across West Yorkshire. Could I ask Angela Taylor, our Director of Finance and Commercial, to take us through the recommendations? Thank you, Angela.
Thank you, Mayor, and I will take heed of the request to try to keep it focused on the key points. So after that introduction, I think it's probably safest to jump straight to paragraph 3.2 in the paper, sets out the key points from the report that we brought in July. So that's a sort of scene-setting background. What we are then proposing in terms of next steps is then set out in paragraph 3.15. The key to what we're trying to achieve here is a focus on delivery. It is about moving away from having we've pressured transport capital programmes, and we need to make sure we don't have too many projects to deliver in effect, and make sure we're moving fast on the right projects to get them into delivery. So paragraph 3.15 sort of takes us forward a step from July. It talks about the need for us to move away from protecting allocations for projects. Doesn't mean those projects won't happen, but it is they're on a pipeline. We need to try and make sure we've got the best projects coming forward and not constrain our decision making because we're keeping money aside for projects that are not close to being delivered potentially. Things change from when lists are put together, and we need to keep on top of it. We're also looking at how we manage the development funding and contingency and sharpening that a little. But we are absolutely committed to ensuring that once projects do get to DP4, that delivery point, that funding is guaranteed. So once they get to that point, the money is there, but we do expect them then to be tightly managed, deliver within time, within budget, and get that delivery message out there. In terms of next steps, we will work through the fine detail of this. If members are content with this sort of direction of travel and endorse these, this approach, we'll work through this with partner authorities and make sure we're all clear on how we make this happen in practice, and get that focus, as we said, on getting the right projects forward at pace and getting them into delivery. Happy for questions. Thank you.
Thanks. And just to reiterate, this is about delivery. They're not sitting on projects because we said we would. That projects that now no longer chime with our ambitions and our vision for our region. And it's about being flexible and iterating, changing circumstances, different political landscape and so on, and potentially different priorities. So I really value the way that we have all collectively approached this. Change isn't always easy, but I think it's been a really good example of our collective effort to deliver for the people of West Yorkshire. Any comments on new ways of delivery? No, thank you. So hopefully we are happy then to note the pressures on the CA's delivery portfolio and to endorse the proposal to the new revised ways of working. Lovely. Thank you so much. Item 10, employment support and business startup. Now, this is about our employment support and business startup programs that are delivered in partnership with the 5 local authorities. It outlines how we're providing funding certainty, so no cliff edges, of the Employment West Yorkshire and Enterprise West Yorkshire programmes to ensure that they continue to be delivered. Could I ask Councillor James Lewis to introduce the report, and then I'll come to Felix to talk through recommendations.
Thanks. I suggest we go straight to Felix, Mayor.
Super. Felix.
And I'll do my best to be very quick in the spirit of the time. The paper, as the Mayor's just set out, is to ensure that we're able to provide reassurance to our partners, especially our local authority partners, and to make sure that these important programs continue post-March 2025. Employment West Yorkshire is our framework and our delivery vehicle to provide employment support to our residents, to make sure everybody who needs any form of support to be able to get into work, to progress into work, to stay in work, has the support to be able to do so. We know and we expect further information from central government around when it comes to central support. We're expecting some funding from central government from a program called Universal Support. However, with the change in government over the summer, the new government is taking its time to understand that and to work through what the guidance will be and whether and how to devolve these to us and all of that. So it is entirely possible that there might be some delays in that respect, which is why it's important that we bring this paper here and to provide that reassurance that if there is any delay, the Combined Authority will find a way to make sure the program continues here and people who need the support do get the support. What is important to note is that we are being evidence-led here, as you would expect. So we know the evidence is very clear that health-led economic inactivity is the big area, is growing, and there isn't a lot of provision. So we will make sure we pivot this as much as possible, as much as is reasonable, to take account of what the evidence is saying. Related to that is Enterprise West Yorkshire and specifically the startup program there. We currently have provision for 5 startup managers who work across the region to support individuals, entrepreneurs, innovators who want to start a business and to help them access the supports they need. This paper is seeking approval for us to be able to continue that provision post-March 2025 in advance of the local growth plan work coming to concluding. This is because, again, we need to provide that reassurance as people's contracts come to an end in case, people begin to feel that they need to look elsewhere. As I said when I was talking about the local growth plan, we are about 18 to 20,000 businesses short. And so it's important that we do not lose this resource, which is dedicated to helping people set up businesses here and enable them to be prosperous and to create jobs here. So that's why we've brought this paper, and is seeking a delegation then from you to the head of pay service, to Ben, to ensure that on the operational side we have the approvals that we need before, if that approval falls in between meeting cycles, we can get on with that without having to wait for a meeting. So I hope that is helpful.
Thank you so much, Felix. And this certainty is really important. We've had far too many stop-start programs, short-term programs that don't build trust and confidence. So I hope that we can all agree that this is very welcome to provide that certainty when we're faced with this cliff edge. So can we approve the recommendation of Councillor Paulson?
Just a couple of quick queries on this one. Are there outcomes for both the employment support and the business startup support, like KPIs there? So because it's really important that this works and the support is there, and that we're putting this funding in to keep it going, and we really need to make sure we're getting bang for our buck on this, to feed into the previous presentation. And have we looked at what the local authorities are doing, so there's no duplication, and we are actually filling the needs gaps here with these 2 decisions?
Thank you so much, Rebecca. I'll come to Ben, then maybe Felix.
Chair, thank you. So the answer is yes, there are performance metrics, and indeed there is a scrutiny meeting tomorrow where a full set of performance metrics are being brought, and Felix and his team make very sure there's no duplication between local authority activity and the CA activity. In fact, it's one stage, I would argue, beyond that, in the sense that it's a fully coordinated programme between the CA and the local authorities who are doing the local delivery on the ground.
But also just to reassure you, Councillor Poulsen, that anything that doesn't work, we're not shy of getting rid of it, because we're not going to waste time and money on things that have no impact, because our mission is growth. And if it's not going to help us, then we think again. Anything to add, Felix?
Thank you, Mayor. I will reiterate, the model that Employment West Yorkshire in particular uses is that the combined authority, working with partners, sets the overall direction using the evidence, and then commissions, and in particular commission our local authority partners to then lead the local delivery. So we're making sure there's no duplication there. Where there can sometimes be duplication is where national provision is commissioned above us without us being involved in that, and then we sometimes have to pivot and tweak what we're doing to cover the ground. In terms of the metrics, absolutely. So just very quickly to throughout, we had a target of making sure, reaching about 7,700 people in the last year. We are already over 9,600. We have a satisfaction rate of 91%. The evidence, we have evaluation that's currently underway, by the emerging evidence showing that for every pound spent on Employment West Yorkshire, we're getting back more than £5, almost £6 into the economy. So we have this and other metrics that we're following to make sure we understand the value for money position, and we can reassure you as the decision makers on the investment that we're making. And it's similar to the startup managers.
And certainly, as we're from Yorkshire, we understand the value of money, and we want a bang for our buck, don't we? So thank you very much. So are we happy to endorse what we've heard, and also that we can confirm the delegation, delegation to the head of service to approve the change request for Enterprise West Yorkshire and Employment West Yorkshire, if required, in line with future guidance from central government, especially regarding universal support and other work and health policy decisions, subject to the approval of the combined authorities budget. Happy to do so. Thank you so much. Okie doke. Moving on to 11A, project approvals, investment priority 4, tackling the climate emergency and environmental sustainability. We've 2 reports today. This report provides details of 2 schemes being recommended to the CA for progression through the assurance process. So can I come to Jess McNeil, our Head of Home Energy West Yorkshire, new title for the programme, to take us through the recommendations before I open up to comments. Thank you, Jess.
Thank you, Mayor. Do you want to come in, Councillor Scullion, first, or did you want
Oh,
to?
apologies. I am so sorry. Jane, I've been used to maybe an absence, but now you're here. I give you the whole floor. Please, Councillor Scullion, apologies.
Thank you. I shall try not to take offence, but as you know, I've been off for about 7 months, and I'm very pleased to be back and back in train, and very pleased to be bringing this report. And I will hand over to Jess. I just wanted to, by way of introduction to this report, just say 1 or 2 things. And the first is to reiterate, and apologies because you will have heard this before, but the region, West Yorkshire's housing, is responsible for approximately 30% of the region's total carbon emissions, and the majority of that actually comes from the use of fossil fuels to heat homes. So you can see that the need to retrofit our homes is greater in West Yorkshire than almost anywhere else. And of course, we have a lot of pre-1919 old cold stone houses, hard to insulate and really hard to heat and hard to retrofit. That's the challenge in front of us. And as the Mayor says, we've now got what was the Better Homes Hub and is now the one-stop shop. I hope we're finished with renaming, relaunching things, but the one-stop shop. I think it's important to say that this initiative will be a platform for all West Yorkshire residents, regardless of tenure. So it's not just about social housing, it's about all kinds of tenure, and indeed open to landlords. We want to encourage landlords to take up this advice, free, impartial advice. I think one of the other things to say by way of introduction, I won't go into all the detail of the things that it's going to offer, But actually, one of the key things that this is going to offer is actually about accreditation, about giving people some sort of assurance in terms of the quality, because this is new to many people. People like myself as a householder, you don't necessarily know what to buy, where to go, what's suitable for your type of property. That assurance and quality accreditation actually I think is something that will be really useful over the coming years. I'll hand over, Mayor, if I can, to Jess. Thank you.
Thank you. And before I come to Jess, I will come to yourself, Councillor Burton, because I know you're doing something a little bit similar in York. So it might be interesting, once Jess has gone through her report, just to hear a little bit about what, learnings across the whole of the North. So, Jess.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon. So as Councillor Scullion has said, the One Stop Shop forms part of our new programme, which is called Home Energy West Yorkshire. And that's the Combined Authorities programme to deliver domestic retrofit across West Yorkshire. We currently have a number of live activities in our social housing decarbonisation fund, low interest loan, residential collective buying scheme with Solar Together, and working with our local authority partners to deliver area-based schemes. The one-stop shop, as Councillor Scullion has advised, will be a platform for all West Yorkshire residents, encompassing all of those that haven't currently been involved with retrofit. It will offer free impartial advice, raise awareness and information on domestic retrofit and energy efficient solutions such as solar panels, air source heat pumps, energy efficient windows and ventilation to improve energy efficiency and reduce carbon emissions. It will also help to mitigate financial barriers that often prevent households from undertaking retrofit projects by offering advice about and connecting households with available grants, incentives and financing options for funding retrofit measures. The One Stop Shop will also facilitate retrofit planning and installation of retrofit measures. Installation services offered will cover a wide range of energy efficient solutions such as various types of insulation, battery storage, solar thermal systems, low carbon heating systems and energy efficient windows. We have been working closely with UKIB Advisory Service to ensure the delivery model and contract requirements of the One Stop Shop achieve the desired outputs and outcomes and impacts, helping shape the right structure and scope for West Yorkshire. The One Stop Shop will be one of the key interventions raising trust, awareness and support will be central platform and tool as we continue to develop and promote products and projects needed to facilitate domestic retrofit delivery at scale. Initial marketing focus will be on those that are willing and able to pay and those who recognise the climate emergency position that we are in and that they can play their part through domestic retrofit measures to their homes. We've had some very positive data coming through our residential collective buying scheme, and these households can be encouraged into action by information regarding the financial and environmental benefits. Through a transparent tender process, we will appoint a contractor to manage and deliver the One Stop Shop and its services to ensure efficient delivery and value for money and a sustainable model. The One Stop Shop will be supported by an accredited network of experts to implement works and ensure all measures are completed in line with established industry standards. Just moving on to the recommendations, as the Mayor has noted, we have two there, but I'll deal with the second one first. And that's in regards to the funding sought today to run the One Stop Shop service for the first 5 years. So we're seeking just over £10.5 million, and that's to secure a managing agent outsource resource to run the service for the first 5 years. It also includes some additional resource that will come into the Home Energy West Yorkshire service to manage that relationship with our managing agent, and also the supporting contracts that we'll have in place around the digital platform and the marketing and communications partner that we will engage with. The second request that we've required here today that's come into the committee is, as I've noted, Home Energy West Yorkshire is a broad programme covering One Stop Shop plus others, and we're seeking additional development costs of £400,000, and that's to develop a package of financial incentives that offers retrofit barrier support alongside client support for the programme to develop a long-term plan for intervention and a 10-year social housing plan. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think it's really exciting. And I was at number 11 at Rachel Reeves' Women Leaders reception, and I was talking about the One Stop Shop, and there's a lot of excitement about it, but also a question about trust in the quality of the products and so on. I wonder just if you could just give us a bit of reassurance that we are embarking on something that obviously then has an end user, and to ensure that they get quality and something that's a proper product and not cowboys that we have seen far too many headlines, haven't we?
We have, yes, thank you, Mayor. Absolutely. So our managing agent contract will be appointed to run the service on our behalf, and that will also be subcontracted to installers, but all installers will have to ensure that they are adhering to and can supply evidence that they are delivering installations to clear industry standards. The due diligence side of that will be thorough and robust through our procurement process to ensure that we are offering quality, reliable, trustworthy services to all residents within West Yorkshire.
Thank you. And our supply chain is robust as well, that we have so many businesses in West Yorkshire that are building ground source and air source heat pumps as well. So to try and encourage people to not buy in from China and elsewhere, but to make sure that we get that supply chain part of this great good news story. So thank you very much for the work you've done on it. And thank you, Councillor Scullin, on the leadership that you've shown with this project. So Ben, have we missed anything? Are you doing anything in York that we're missing out on?
Yeah, well, not that you're missing out on. I think it's very similar, but yeah, happy to come in. My other job outside the council is actually in retrofit, so it's a good thing to hop in on. But I just thought I'd pick up a lot of the languages around environment, which is obviously great. But obviously, there's lots of other benefits to retrofit in terms of health and well-being, and income in people's pockets at the end of the day after the work's been done. So I think it's not to lose track of that. In York, very similar, the one-stop shop, except for we're lucky in a smaller area to have an advanced charity sector in this area, so we're working more closely with them, but at some point it's aligning that and the council's work. And then we're also just blending that with the Hug 2 pipeline as well simultaneously, because that's the funding stream for doing off-gas properties. So it's just kind of blending those two things as they go forward. But yeah, overall, it's a massive challenge. So as much as we can do to share learning as we go forward is the main thing for us to do. Thank you for that. And I wasn't aware that your other job was in retrofit, so a bit of a conflict of interest potentially, but maybe not. Lots of expertise. But I would say that when we're talking about the growth plan, is it correct, Felix, that our green sector in West Yorkshire, we are growing faster than anywhere else in the country? It's 8 billion, and by 2026 it's going to be 11 billion of value to our region. Is this an exam question you weren't ready for?
I will not say no to that. I can't say that we're going faster than anywhere else, but it is growing quite quickly, yes, in the specific areas that we've got core competencies in around some of the component parts and some of the green tech spaces where, because we've got tech and digital competence across the economy, it lends itself very well to the green space. So that is growing well. Whether we are growing faster than anywhere else in the country, I think I'll pass on that for now.
I'm going to find the press headline and I'm going to send it to you, Felix, and we're going to share it with every member of the committee so that we can celebrate all the good news. Okie doke. Any further comments? Yes, Councillor Paulson.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the report. I think we've discussed this previously with the concerns about there's so many cowboys out there offering this service, and people don't know who to trust when they come in and say you need this, this, and this. Particularly on the retrofit in a lot of our older, housing we've got. One thing, I mean, it sounds great and that it's open to everybody to come and do it, but in 3.5 in the report, it says it's aiming to achieve a minimum of 121 homes upgraded in 5 years and 917 assessments in 5 years. It doesn't seem very high, because I would imagine if this is going to be a reliable service where the combined authority is backing and funding it, people will want those assessments. And we've got a lot of properties and a lot of people out there. So across 5 local authorities, 900 assessments in 5 years doesn't seem very many if that's in the contract, because I think there's going to be a lot of demand for this. I just wondered if there was where those figures have come from.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Yes, we're very cautious of the figures that are in there. We've taken a lot of conversation with colleagues in Manchester, Oxford, Bristol, who have existing one-stop shops. And along with the advice that we've had with UKIB, such services can be and have tended to be slow to embed and take up and interest and awareness from colleagues, from residents. And so those are purely minimum targets. We will be expecting those to be reached beyond those, but we've put in some minimum targets to ensure that we get those outputs and outcomes and enabling that transfer. We've seen some very good data, particularly coming through our residential collective buying scheme, where when residents are given the tools and the options and availability to do something, those numbers have been very encouraging. So they will be minimum numbers, but learning from where we've had some engagement with other one-stop shop services, it's building that recognition. I think the first couple of years are likely to be slow, but we'll build that awareness, that trust, that integration, and that engagement with residents over the years to make sure that those figures are achieved and actually go beyond that.
Thank you, and I'm with Rebecca on this, that we have to be as ambitious as possible to get as many people to buy into the change that they can see in their home. But I am reassured as well by the collective buying scheme for solar panels. I was really shocked at the incredible numbers of people who are very interested in doing it as a group of houses to get a better deal. It was in the thousands, that, wasn't it?
It is, yes. I have some figures actually just from today. So in total, 4,293 homes registered as interested in coming forward for the residential collective buying scheme. Of those, 944 homes have paid for and will be undertaken a survey. We have already had 221 of those surveys confirmed, and we've had 2 installations already completed with 49 booked in to take place. So, and that's a growing figure. That's running till the end of March. So on that data, we'll be able to see some great figures coming through.
And also people have been accessing the a loan opportunity as well to then buy the solar panels. So our offer is a 360 offer that is very reassuring.
Yes, it is, Mayor. Yeah, so far we've had 50 applications for the loans, and we're working through those in terms of the due diligence and the appraisals. The loan is for domestic retrofit measures only, so they're the context. But there is a lot of correlation between the loans that are coming through and households wanting to install the solar panels. So that knowledge and data is coming through, hence the minimal levels, and expecting those to grow considerably over the first 5 years.
Super, thank you. Any further comments, Councillor Love?
Just briefly, will there be a reporting mechanism for you to report back either to the appropriate committee or to ourselves as progress goes along over the next 5 years?
Yes, we'll be getting monthly data through our managing agents, so we can bring those as often as requested, and we'll bring those to the Climate Committee also, so we'll have that regular monitoring of outputs and data, absolutely.
And of course those minutes are available for people to just check. Super, thank you. Thank you for your work and leadership on this. I think it's often seen as a risk, a new project like this, but I think if you don't take risks, you don't achieve. So I think it's something that I'm very excited about. I'm very proud that West Yorkshire is leading in such a dynamic way. So can we approve the schemes outlined to progress through to the assurance process with the approval of the Combined Authorities funding contribution and future assurance pathways and approval routes? All happy to approve. That is super. Thank you so much. The next project approval is 4 schemes that have been recommended to the CA for progression through the assurance process. If I could ask Councillor Hinchcliffe, and then I'll come to Simon to talk us through these approvals.
Yes, briefly then, Mayor. All of these are sort of good schemes that we need to get through. Transport is the core of what we do here at the Combined Authority. Obviously, we've really benefited from the bus service improvement monies that we've had through, and obviously the Mayor's Fares, who was the first in the country to achieve that £2 bus fare. So we wait to see what happens next, of course. We're all fingers crossed for what happens in the budget 30th of October. We'll have to see. And pass over to Simon for the detail of the reports. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the first of the 4 elements relates to the bus service improvement plan, and it builds on an update report that we took to the 24th of May Transport Committee setting out the progress against the plan, and very much really reflects realised costs now against the BTIP programme, both realised costs in the context of real contractual cost inflation that we have been seeing through the tendered services budget, and also realised costs in the context of what has over time become a slightly changed environment around the Mayor's Fairs framework, with Mayor's Fairs, of course, now being followed up at a national level with a national fairs regime. And therefore, the proposal that we have worked up and taken through the assurance framework with the support of the Transport Committee looks to balance our available BSIP funds to reflect a need for us to continue to maintain a £2 fare in line with the National Fares policy, for us to continue to maintain the Safer Travel partnership and the real benefits that we are now seeing through that partnership, whilst at the same time safeguarding funds for network enhancement. As Councillor Hinchcliffe rightly points out, this takes us to the end of the calendar year. We are and have been for several months now in earnest dialogue with DFT colleagues around a continuation process for the National Fares regime extending into next year. They recognise that as a priority, not only for West Yorkshire, but for a number of areas around the country. And we will need to act quite urgently on the back of confirmation of funds through the 30th of October budget statement in terms of putting arrangements in place for the subsequent calendar year. Shall I pause while you take the recommendations on that?
Thank you so much. So that's the bus service improvement plan recommendation. Are we happy to, have we got any comments on that? No, thank you. So we're happy to approve the recommendation. Thank you so much. So CRSTS, highways.
Yes, thank you. So the second set of recommendations relates to some adjustments that we are seeking to make to the ongoing 5-year Highways and Active Travel Asset Management and Enhancement programme. And in effect, they reflect two change items. So one is, or two types of change item. The first is that we have been successful as West Yorkshire partners in receiving an additional £9.266 million through an additional road resurfacing fund that was set up through the Network North policy arrangement, and therefore we are we have agreed with partners that we should subsume those funds into this ongoing programme, and there is an adjustment in terms of allocations across the 5 partners to reflect that. And the second is the opportunity for us to bring forward some of the funds for schemes in Leeds and Kirklees so that we can support timely and early delivery.
Thank you so much. Any comments? We're happy to take these recommendations. Super, thank you. And then is it one final one, Simon?
I'm afraid there's two, yes.
Oh, two more. Please go ahead.
The first is a change request against the CRSTS Network Management and Engagement Programme that is focused on our urban traffic control systems. Again, we've been successful in securing an additional £507,000 grant from a discrete traffic signal obsolescence grant fund, the detail of which I shan't go into right now.
That sounds like the bottom of a sofa or down the side of a sofa, isn't it?
We've set out an allocation across the 5 authorities, which we've agreed with colleagues.
Super, thank you. This is all traffic light management as well, isn't it? We're happy to approve. Lovely, thank you. And moving on.
And finally, we have a scheme coming forward for progression through decision point 2. So we are content that there's an assured strategic outline case and supportive now of Bradford Council's request to draw down an additional £2.709 million for ongoing business case development preparation, and we're recommending that we also agree indicative approval of the £20 million allocation to the scheme, which of the release of which clearly would only be subject to the receipt of an assured business case in due course.
Thank you. Any comments? Happy to approve? Super, thank you all so much. Lovely. Moving on to item 12, procurement reform and amendments to contract standing orders. This paper was produced in anticipation of the go live of the new Procurement Act on the 28th of October and our need to have revised regulations in place to ensure our compliance with this new legislation. In the last few days, Cabinet Office has announced a delay to the implementation date. But can I ask Angela Taylor to take us through the recommendation and what's happened in the past week? Thank you, Angela.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So we brought this paper to ensure that we could bring revised contract standing orders to the committee for approval ahead of 28th of October. The next date of this committee is 31st of October. We've been timed out from bringing them to this meeting because much of the legislation and the detail has only emerged over the summer. Cabinet Office has been doing briefings throughout July and August on the contents of the Act. So the paper sets out what we need to do to, what we believe we need to do to comply with the Act. The Procurement Act is intended to create simpler, more flexible, more effective procurement. It brings with it a greater need for planning and transparency, which is obviously not a bad thing. And we had anticipated some of the sort of changes that might be required. So the paper sets out that in the main body of the paper. We've also taken this bit of an opportunity to just review generally how procurement operates. We're comparing as we do periodically with local partners and making sure our processes are as tight, as good, as effective as they can be. So we're using the Procurement Act as an opportunity for any other change at the same time. After we published this paper, the Cabinet Office announced a delay to the 28th of February. And this is to enable them to bring in a new national procurement strategy. So it doesn't take our eye off the ball. We still want to make sure our procurement is fit for purpose, but we don't need to actually put in place new contract standing orders now until just ahead of February. We need our current version are fit for purpose and we need to keep using them. So in terms of the recommendations in front of you, the second recommendation was seeking a delegation to enable us to make changes. What I would suggest is that we bring instead the revised contract standing orders to this meeting in December or indeed January, however agendas work. But there is an opportunity to bring them back in time for an approval now. And if you're comfortable with that, we will make that change to the recommendation.
Thank you so much. I wonder, just at this point, Felix, if you wanted to just talk to the AEB procurement, just to share that with the CA colleagues. We're talking procurement.
Yes, I'll do that, Chair. As members will know, and we sent a briefing round, so we should have all the information that we have at this point that we're able to share. We had to abandon the £7 million of our £67 million AEB procurement because there were some issues in the procurement process and there were some risks to the combined authority that meant we had to act. So we've done that, we've communicated that. Obviously this is it's far from ideal and we would obviously rather not be in a situation like this. The reassurance we can give you is that the rest of the AEB budget, the 60 million of the 67 million is being commissioned out to our partners, FE colleges, local authority partners, etc. And that is progressing without any issues there. Other skills and adults training budgets that we have, like boot camps and free courses for jobs and other such provision, also progressing with no such issues at all. So this is very unfortunate and regrettable decision that we had to make, but it by no means is the majority of commissioning in this space, and most of our commissioning is progressing. We are putting mitigation measures in place, as we said in the briefing that came round, and so where we are able to extend or expand grant provision that we have with existing partners, we are doing that. And we're doing that to make sure that all residents who were hoping or expecting to take advantage of these can still do that, and do that with reputable providers like our FE colleges and training, some of our training providers, very few, but also our local authority partners. We are also looking at what extra procurement we can get out in the next few months to bridge any gaps that we identify. So that's what's underway. We're hoping to bring a paper to you at the October meeting, where we can provide a bit more of a comprehensive view of what's happening and what mitigation we put in place.
Thank you so much, Felix, because what's important for me, particularly when we've just heard about the growth plan, is that we need to make sure that everybody is ready and has the skills and the qualifications they need to move on to the next step. So that was our priority in this circumstance, that learners will not be affected and they will have other offers, and they will be supported into the next phase of learning. Thank you. Any comments on this? Yes, Councillor Poulsen.
Yeah, can I just check? I don't seem to have had this briefing. Did it just go to full members, or did alternates receive it as well? Because I haven't got anything. And also, will the review of procurement stop this issue happening in the future?
Thank you. We'll check on whether you've not been sent the briefing or not. We'll just make sure that you do get it. Once this meeting finishes, we'll make sure you get it. If you would, Angela, answer the last part.
Yeah, we have done a lessons learned on the AB procurement. It doesn't look on the surface that actually the contract standing orders were not complied with. I think it's some of the devil of the detail and the execution of the detailed process underneath it. So some of the work is about refreshing processes, making sure people are fully sighted on how to do it. If there is anything, we will obviously pick it up in the review of contract standing orders. But they, in effect, provide the overarching compliant framework. Beneath that, there's a lot of processes and systems within it. And it appears to be at that level that that some of the challenges were identified.
Thank you. And the good news story, of course, is 60 million plus money has gone out to adult education to give people an opportunity to get those better paid jobs. Okie doke. Thank you. Any further comments? Are we happy to note and endorse the scope and the intention of the upcoming changes to the contract standing orders? We are. Thank you. And are we happy to approve that you're going to bring it to the next meeting for further conversations and for sign-off? Lovely. Thank you so much. Okie doke. Moving on to the merger of the Business Economy and Innovation Committee with the Employment and Skills Committee. As it says, this is about merging two committees to form a new economy committee with a clear purpose to enhance coherence in delivering our strategic priorities, particularly those aligned with the local growth plan. And the paper details the draft terms of reference, proposed membership and rationale for this merger. If I could come to Councillor Lewis as chair of the committee, and then I'll come to you, Felix.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a paper I support. Since I came onto the combined authority, I've chaired both committees. It's clear that there's quite an overlapping work stream around it. The two areas of focus were closely linked. But I think the most important bit for me is it's an area where we've had a really strong buy-in from private sector and other organisations represented on the committees, and actually bringing it together to be able to have a committee where we can look at what we need to do, what the data's saying, and where actually we can have an impact and have that discussion with both education institutions, training providers, the private sector, business representative groups around the table, and have that as a single discussion in one place. I think is really what we need to take the growth plan forward. I mean, we've already discussed today how quite often economic growth and attracting good employers and supporting good employers to grow is reliant on having a skilled workforce, and bringing that together in one place is a good idea. So I support the paper, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Felix, Anything to contribute?
Okay, I'll try not to repeat anything. The overlap was very obvious, and so bringing these two committees together made sense to us, and we hope you feel able to approve it. We brought in a paper in your last meeting where you approved it in principle. Since then, we've been to the two committees met in a joint session and had a really good meeting. And the paper you've got now sets out our plans for how the new committee called the Economy Committee will be constituted. So the proposal is for Councillor Lewis to chair the Economy Committee, for Professor Shirley Condon, who is currently the Deputy Chair of the Employment and Skills Committee, to be the Deputy Chair of this new Economic Committee. The paper sets out some of the membership that we are expecting to populate this. Work will continue to go on to make sure we assemble a group of people that we need to assemble for this Economic Committee to do its work.
Thank you so much, and I'd just like to put on record my thanks to all of the committee members of all of our committees who are working incredibly hard to deliver for our region. But this committee is absolutely essential alongside the others as well. But if we're going to grow our economy, I think bringing skills together under this one heading is really important, because every business I visit talks about a skills gap and struggling to recruit the right skilled workforce to boost and to support their plans for growth. So I think it's a good step, and I'm really happy to approve it. But are we happy to approve the proposal and merging Business, Economy and Innovation with Employment and Skills Committee? We are. Super. Thank you so much. Okay, governance and risk management, two important documents for consideration. Firstly, the draft annual governance statement, which looks back over the previous financial year and forwards to this financial year, highlighting significant governance issues and areas for improvement, setting out governance improvement plan. The second document is an updated risk management strategy set within the context of further changes to be adopted during the course of this year. Could I ask Alan Rees, our Chief Operating Officer, to take us through recommendations?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mayor. As you said, it covers these two documents. Both have been considered by the Governance and Audit Committee, who have provided their comments and supported it. The annual governance statement publication is a statutory requirement that goes with our accounts. As you said, it reflects both changes that we have already put in place and also the areas of improvement over the coming year. Some of the changes that we have made and continue to make are around aiming to accelerate delivery through changes to our delegations, greater empowerment and accountability. Over the last 12 months, we've improved the public reporting of compliance across a range of issues, which gets published for the Governance and Audit Committee. And then there are also changes to risk management reflected in the annual governance statement. The second document is then the risk management strategy. At this point, this is a light touch review reflecting changes to roles and responsibilities. It is being looked at more thoroughly. We've recently, reflecting the expansion in the organisation's responsibilities and scope of budget and so on, we've recently bolstered our risk management capacity, specialist capacity within the organisation, and the team are now reviewing the risk management strategy and will be bringing forward some further recommendations, which we will bring to the combined authority in due course. I just wanted also to mention, because it's not reflected in this report, that the corporate risk register, which sets out what the key risks of the organisation actually are and what the mitigations are in place to tackle those risks, continues to be regularly published and discussed at the Governance and Audit Committee. So it doesn't form part of this report, but in terms of operationalising this and working with members on how we are managing risk, that continues to be a regular item at Governance and Audit Committee. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any comments? No, thank you. So are we happy to approve the draft annual governance statement on Appendix 1 for publication as part of the annual accounts, and to adopt the risk management strategy at Appendix 2? We are. Lovely, thank you. So finally, minutes for information. As we mentioned earlier, the minutes of other committees are available and published on our website. Thank you to everybody that's come today and for your contributions. And just remind members, the next meeting is the 31st of October. Is that Halloween? dear. No costumes required. So 31st of October, and it will be after the statements, which is the 30th, isn't it? Right. So we'll be able to maybe mop up some of that thinking as well. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the 31st. Thank you very much, Miles.